Good afternoon, also from my side, and also thanks for the opportunity to share views with you. I think it was a perfect start, kind of because I'm picking up on the content of what was just presented, so I hope we can get some joint discussions around that as well. Maybe very briefly, you know Vattenfall. You see the dark shaded areas, which is the areas where we have now decided to concentrate our asset base on. The other areas are not meaning that they are not of interest to Vattenfall, but we are quite active, specifically in the trading area where I'm responsible for. We are, of course, not only in these, but also in other markets. So the European energy market and the possibility to work in that market is for us extremely essential. And that's why we try to have a really dedicated position on that, and also to make sure that we can operate as a player in that market. So for us, it's quite essential, although we have now been concentrating our asset base around these core countries. So what we have seen and why we're here for today is that we all know that we are in need of more transmission capacity. We just saw impressive numbers, which I can share. And maybe giving a reference, I have been working for the German TSO, which is now 50 Hertz transmission, until we sold it to Elia and IFM some years ago. So I do believe I have some insights in what the needs are, and I've been taking also my part of the fights in trying to realize transmission lines. So being German, you know, there is this possibility to put nouns together into long words, and one of these monsters is an acceleration law, which I think was one of 3 we had in Germany, and just the name gives you a flavor of the impact it had. It was Energieleitungsausbaubeschleunigungsgesetz. Yeah, so such a long word, which shall be meant to accelerate. Unfortunately not, so I hope we are more successful in this approach. Why is transmission important? I think the renewable integration is quite a key element that we see also, which is needed, and specifically in the area where Vattenfall operates, this is of key importance. Also the question, how can you at lowest cost get to a CO2 abatement? Security of supply has been discounted by some people. I believe it is a key element, so we will see more of that also this winter. Probably Tenet can also talk a bit more about that. This winter hasn't been an easy one. Of course, as long as nothing happens, everyone says, it's the usual complaining. But when you look at the numbers of interference and of, I would say, closer situations, I know that quite well. There are situations we did not have 2 or 3 years ago. So that's just a matter of fact. And of course, last part, which is also important, we should not forget, and some people, I'm afraid, are sometimes no longer have this so much on the agenda, the question of the internal electricity market. If we believe we want an all-regulated market, or an all-regulated environment, call it, I wouldn't call it a market then anymore, that's one solution which you could have, but I'm a believer in the benefits of having a market. And in all the designs we are using to find solutions for issues, we should always keep in mind, is there a market-based solution? Sometimes it's not. If I have monopolies, I need to regulate quite clearly. But if I believe there are options to facilitate a market approach, we should really strive for that and test all solutions we offer against that prerequisite, I would say. So are we on track? So this is the list of, or basically the picture. Should be something that reminds you of Europe with Spain here and the rest. About 100 bottlenecks that have been identified. Big part is the renewable integration. And the idea is, of course, if we want an integrated market, we don't want bottlenecks because they are kind of just the opposite than facilitating a market approach. Then we have heard that there are a large number of projects planned. And this is a picture of the status of the 2010 10-year network plan. And there you see, only 2 years after we have been into the plan, we have more than a third of the projects with a delay. So I think we all agree that is the signal that we should take very seriously. If we see that after only 2 years into a 10-year plan, 1/3 is lagging behind, you shouldn't get, I think, overly excited, but you should at least be wary. What can you do to kind of see that this is not growing, and that you closely monitor and see how can you focus on making sure that the plan is not just a plan, but is having a realistic chance to be realized. So that's the number. Only 52 out of the 495 projects have been commissioned, which is a relatively small number, quite behind what should be there at this point of time. So that was, so to say, the downward-looking part. So now what can we do to make things work better? I share very much about the just presented framework that was just now shown. So we very much welcome the package that we have just been shown, but there are some elements maybe I would like to comment. So one is that this idea of a one-stop shop and a time limit of 3 years needs full support, knowing that what I just mentioned, doing things on European level or even on the federal level, let's say in member states, is often not enough. The issues very often start one level below. So the issues start very much at a regional level to get more messy. So the question is, how can we align the process of this initiative with the member states to really make sure that this is becoming reality and not just a piece of paper where you get all the permits, but when you want to enforce them, you still need to go through many layers of courts, which is okay because we are in a democracy, and if a country has decided that they have several instances, that's okay. And there was a push in Germany, for example, to take out one instance of the lower courts, which normally have not, I would say, the capacity really, and now in terms, I mean, of knowledge, the capacity to really deal with these complex issues and directly go to the next more qualified court, which was causing a heavy debate in Germany that you want to circumvent basic rights of people. So it's a sensitive point, but it's essential to not draw this only on paper, but find ways to make it work. Next point. The incentives to invest. I think many states have gone quite a way. I think the fact, for example, that in Germany some companies who owned TSO decided to move out was really based on this issue. So there was always a bias, at least that's what we felt, for example, as Vattenfall, a bias against large utilities owning TSOs. So there was always this perception, at least from the regulator I was dealing with, basically you have to kind of serve your own purpose. So if you want to sell energy, just make sure there are enough overhead lines. They didn't care about the rationale of the standalone case. This has changed, and I think the clear reaction also of our competitors showed that they were also kind of saying we need to separate, it needs to be standing on its own feet. And the critical element I think that we now need to also solve is the cross-border part, because for the time being, of course, national regulators, national governments try to solve their problems in their states, which is okay for one part. But if we believe we want to have really integrated market, and we see all these bottlenecks that we see, a lot of them are just at the borders because the system has never been built up to be a European system. It has been built to be a regional system. And now we are transforming, so we also need to transform the framework. And this is not yet in the heads of all politicians, maybe also not of all regulators or TSOs. I'm not sure, but it's really moving. And there I see a very strong element of this initiative here, how we can make this work. Then we have seen these 4 priority corridors for the electricity part, or we have not seen them, but we should have seen them. Those were the 4 names were missing. What we would try to promote is really to say we should see that we should make sure that these 4 regions cooperate. It's not good enough to have them stand alone, working on themselves and coming with a solution package, whatever it is. But also then having a loop, let's call it like that, to make sure that these are really integrating with each other. Otherwise, you will probably see misfits. And I'm not sure if that's taken care of, but it should be at least taken care of. And also the point, which is mentioned here, that all projects that show solutions to the common targets should be possible become projects of common interest. So that means for us also that we believe third-party projects should be possible to be recognized. It shouldn't be like a sole right of these groups or of TSOs or whatever to kind of make proposals for possible projects, but it should also be allowed for third-party projects or privately sponsored projects to be at least reviewed with the same criteria, not getting any special treatment, but also not being kind of discounted just because they happen to be third-party projects. We believe that the market can fund the investments. So put it the other way around. If the market cannot fund the investments, any money whoever brings up will not do it. So we need to find adequate framework conditions. Today, the conditions have significantly improved. I think at least all of the outstanding issues have been addressed. Maybe not 100% solved, but the basic concept should be that the market shall be able to fund them, which is difficult enough. I know from Tenet, for example, that is not easy. But still, that is, I think, the ambition, and not just ask taxpayers to fund it, which would be the wrong way. So then the question is about technical solutions also. I just mentioned this issue about acceptability. We had many of the delays, at least in the German environment, which I can judge on, around the question of acceptability. And very often, and it was also about this distribution of benefits and cost, that an affected area where you want to build a massive overhead line has two bad news for them. Number one, you don't at all need this line because it's benefiting someone in the north and someone in the south, but not you. You will have it in your garden, tough luck, and you will have to pay it through the network fees, basically meaning through increased energy prices. So that's a hard sell to people living in that area. Why should they? Why should they say, yes, I believe I'm a good European citizen, so let's go for it. It's a tough message, and I think we need instruments to kind of take people on board. One instrument is compensation, probably, that has been discussed some of times. But another possibility is also an issue of undergrounding, which I would like to give some examples of. So where we are today, I know, also from my time in the TSO, that DC underground has been hotly debated many times. We have seen some solutions. We have, I think, or had, still the largest, one of the largest underground cables in Berlin, underneath the city of more than 20 kilometers, knowing it's very costly and quite intensive to kind of take care of. But there are some more projects coming. So, for example, in Sweden, we have one example of a South Link, which is a 250 kilometer link with a 75% cable portion. So it's 1,400 megawatts, so it's not really small. I think fairly saying there's the north part as well. At least on the roadmap, when you look at the plans, you see more and more proposals, specifically in a very meshed network. Of course, this is also not so easy because if you have this very heavy transport direction transmission, and if you have any failure, it has a heavy impact on your stability. But still, also here in Germany, we see proposals which are part of the package, but unfortunately, we don't have the individual numbers for these lines. It's part of a package which includes AC and DC solutions, in total 9,000 megawatts. But at least we believe that it should be possible to get a much higher acceptance and probably acceleration from these lines. And if you only get 1 year or 2 years acceleration through having underground cables, you will probably see that the bottom line, the business case, is justifying the additional cost. It's only about probably areas. It's not about full lines. It's about sensitive regions. But the higher cost of these lines, I guess, should be at least countered with the benefit of having a quicker installation. And if you take it from a more holistic point of view, I think then very often it may really turn to the point where you say this is a really viable solution. And it should be, I think, seriously pushed. And that could be maybe one of the areas where also the public funding could give some support to really make sure that these things are really tested and laid open and really scrutinized. Is it possible? And not just maybe put on the screen just to then kind of drop them away after a while. So that's the main case. The earlier commissioning, which I think gives a benefit that you should look for. And it's only one piece of the big puzzle that we all need to kind of go for. But at least it should be a food for thought and for discussion. Thank you.